5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start. The learned counsel for the appellant submits that the impugned judgment of the trial court suffers from serious legal infirmities and has failed to appreciate the evidence placed on record in its true and correct perspective. It is submitted that the trial court has overlooked the settled principles of law and has arrived at a conclusion which is not sustainable in the eyes of law. The main contention advanced by the learned counsel is that the prosecution has not been able to establish the chain of circumstances that would unerringly point towards the guilt of the accused. The entire case of the prosecution is based on circumstantial evidence, and it is a settled position in law that such evidence must be consistent, cogent, and capable of leading to only one conclusion, that is, the guilt of the accused beyond all reasonable doubt. It is further submitted that the prosecution has failed to prove the motive for the alleged crime. While motive is not always a necessary component in every case, in the present matter, where the case is built solely on circumstantial evidence, the absence of a proved motive weakens the prosecution's case. The recovery of the alleged weapon from a location that is not in exclusive possession of the accused cannot, by itself, be treated as a conclusive piece of evidence. Moreover, the witnesses examined by the prosecution have not supported the case in its entirety. The so-called last seen theory, as advanced by the prosecution, is also not reliable. As the time gap between the deceased last being seen and the discovery of the body is considerable, and no direct link has been established connecting the accused with the offense during that intervening period. The learned counsel contends that the benefit of doubt must therefore be extended to the accused, and the conviction as recorded by the trial court deserves to be set aside. On the other hand, the learned counsel appearing on behalf of the respondent state has argued that the judgment of the trial court is well-reasoned and does not call for any interference by this appellate court. It is submitted that the prosecution has placed sufficient material on record to establish the involvement of the accused in the offense. The chain of circumstances, including the motive, recovery, and medical evidence, are sufficient to sustain the conviction. It is further argued that the minor inconsistencies in the statements of witnesses do not go to the root of the matter and are natural in the course of deposition. The learned counsel has also submitted that the courts must not adopt a hyper-technical approach in evaluating evidence, especially in cases where the overall circumstances point towards the culpability of the accused. The trial court, after due appreciation of the oral and documentary evidence, has reached a just conclusion, and the present appeal is devoid of merit and liable to be dismissed. After hearing both sides at length and perusing the record of the trial court proceedings, this court finds it appropriate to examine the reasoning assigned by the trial court and whether the same withstands judicial scrutiny. It is evident that the prosecution case rests upon a series of circumstances which are alleged to form a complete chain, pointing solely towards the guilt of the accused. The first circumstance pertains to the alleged motive arising out of a prior dispute. The second is the last seen theory, as deposed by two witnesses, and the third is the recovery of the weapon at the instance of the accused. Additionally, there is the medical opinion indicating the nature of the injuries sustained by the deceased. The trial court has relied upon these circumstances to convict the accused. However, upon closer examination, it appears that the chain of circumstances is not as complete and convincing as required in a case based solely on such evidence. The statement of the witnesses who claim to have last seen the deceased with the accused is not free from doubt. Their presence at the location, as well as the time mentioned in their depositions, has not been corroborated by any independent witness or other reliable material. As regards the recovery of the weapon, it is to be noted that the memorandum and the seizure documents do not bear signatures of any independent witness, nor has the prosecution explained this omission. The location of the recovery is an open place accessible to many, and hence, exclusive possession cannot be attributed to the accused. The medical report, while confirming the nature of the injuries, does not conclusively link the injuries to the alleged weapon recovered. Furthermore, the delay in lodging the first information report has not been satisfactorily explained by the prosecution. Though delay by itself is not always fatal, it assumes importance when it casts a doubt on the prosecution story. This court is of the view that while suspicion may arise against the accused, it cannot take the place of legal proof. The law is clear that the prosecution must establish its case beyond reasonable doubt, and if there is any doubt, however slight, which gives rise to an alternative hypothesis, the benefit of the doubt must go to the accused. In light of the above discussion, and after weighing the evidence in its entirety, this court finds that the conviction recorded by the trial court cannot be sustained. The prosecution has not been able to bring home the guilt of the accused with the degree of certainty required under criminal jurisprudence. The inconsistencies in the prosecution evidence, the unreliable nature of the last seen theory, the lack of independent corroboration, and the infirmities in the recovery proceedings create sufficient doubt about the case of the prosecution. Accordingly, the appeal is allowed. The judgment and the order of conviction and sentence passed by the trial court are set aside. The accused is acquitted of all the charges. The learned court ordered that he shall be released forthwith, if not required in any other case. Stop.